All right, so registered investments. Now, registered, there's multiple different tiers. And the main thing that you got to understand about registered investments is that you're registering it with the government and you only have certain contribution room. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a tax-free savings account. Tax-free savings account gives you annual contribution room to contribute to one account. Now, that's a misconception about tax-free savings account. People think that they have to contribute to multiple different accounts. So you have your contribution room of $5,000, and this year it went up to $5,500. But they think that they have to have different accounts of all those different areas. That's actually incorrect. What the government has said is that you can't contribute more than that $5,000 or $5,500 now, but it can all go into one account, meaning that your principal is actually going to be higher, allowing that interest, that growth, to actually have more of an effect. Whereas if you just have different $5,000 accounts set up, the interest is not going to affect it as dramatically. So that is something that is the first misconception I wanted to clear up. The second thing about a tax-free savings account that's really important to know is that the contribution room is actually cumulative. So what that means is that if you go back to 2009, when the tax-free savings account was implemented, that means that you now have a tax-free savings account for 2009, for 2010, 2011, 2012, and now 2013. That means that if you've never contributed to a tax-free savings account, you have $25,500 worth of contribution room. That's money that you can put in and invest however you so choose, and invest it in a way that's going to be high growth potentially, and you're not going to have to declare those taxes. You're going to have to declare them as income, but you're not going to be taxed on them. Now, that's the first thing, tax-free savings account. So that is always my first step. Let's get you into a tax-free savings account. Let's start you saving. Now, there is one downside to a tax-free savings account. Once you've invested in that tax-free savings account, that takes up that contribution room forever. So what that means is, say you invested $3,000, okay, into a tax-free savings account for this year. You pulled out $1,000, so now theoretically your balance is sitting at $2,000. But then you put in another $1,000, you actually have used $4,000 of contribution room as opposed to just $3,000. So that is something that is really important to understand. Tax-free savings accounts are not your everyday savings account. You don't just put money out, pull them out, put money in, pull them out, put money in, pull them out. You're going to put money in and leave it in there for a while. And the reason for that is so that you can maximize that growth. However, it is a great opportunity, a tax-free savings account is a great opportunity to provide that emergency funding that you might need. What happens if your furnace blows up? What happens if a medical expense comes up that you need access to right away? Tax-free savings accounts are a great way to use that because this emergency fund, hopefully you're not using very often, and so as a result of that, you can actually let that money grow and let it work for you as opposed to against you. So that's the first thing about a tax-free savings account, or first thing about registered investments. The second thing is about what's called an RSP. Now, you guys are all familiar with RSPs. I know that. We hear that term all the time, but it's thrown around loosely. Realistically, what an RSP means is it's a plan that is registered with the government to allow you to defer the tax implications. Every year, you have 18% of your annual income as your contribution room for your RSPs. So it's quite substantial. What you can do is you can put that money to an RSP. What's going to happen is that it's going to defer the taxes on any growth in that RSP until you choose to remove it. Now, one thing to be careful about, people think that they can use an RSP and then just withdraw from it. But there are going to be substantial tax implications as a result of that. So it's really important when you're thinking about withdrawing from an RSP to talk to your financial advisor, to talk to your financial planner, to find out if it's going to be the best fit for you. Now, there are two exceptions to that rule. If you are contributing regularly to an RSP, you can actually withdraw that money for two different reasons without suffering the tax implications. The first is what's called a home buyer's plan. That is going to allow you to contribute up to $25,000 or to withdraw up to $25,000 from your RSPs and contribute to it to the purchase of a new home. What's nice about that is that money does not have to be used directly for that new home. What it can be used is it can be used for a renovation in that home. It can be used for furniture for that new home. The important qualifier, though, is that you have 30 days after the time of your mortgage being processed to use that money to withdraw that money. You can use it however you want. And then what happens, you have a 2-year, essentially a 2-year vacation from having to pay it. You can pay it back early if you want. But starting on that second year, you have then 15 years to pay it back in equal payments. So if you take out the maximum, the $25,000, you're looking at about monthly payments of about $1,667, if I'm correct. What that means is that as a result of that, you're only going to have a monthly payment in the $130, $140 range. And so what that means is that you're going to be paying that back and getting that money back, and you're essentially borrowing from yourself. That home buyer's plan is a great way to start buying for your first home. It's a great way to offer a down payment if you want to save for your retirement as well. You're going to be able to do that through that home buyer's plan, and that's something that's very important. The second thing that's really great about using an RSP and how you can withdraw it early is through what's called the Lifelong Learning Plan. Now that Lifelong Learning Plan allows you to take up to $10,000 a year and use it for your education. Okay? So when you're working with your education, that's something that's really, really important. You can save for that without having to suffer the tax implications. So if you're ready to start figuring out if registered investments are the right way for you to go, I want you to give me a call, 204-955-2879, or send me an email, eku@ekumalcolm.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.